African news updates on top accolade news. The headlines. United Nations calls for immediate release of Niger's ousted president and his wife. KIZZA BESIGYE begins hunger strike. GABON'S court shut down as magistrate protests for better pay and conditions. Ghana faces $156 million budget shortfall after USAID freeze. In politics, United Nations calls for immediate release of Niger's ousted president and his wife. The United Nations Working Group on Arbitrary Detention has called for the immediate release of Mohamed Bazoum, the former president of Niger, and his wife Hadiza, who have been detained since the July 2023 coup. Held in isolation without contact with the outside world, the United Nations decries this detention as a violation of international law. Despite these calls, Niger's military regime insists that he is involved in plotting attacks against the state. His legal team described the couple's situation as a hostage crisis with the ousted president used as a pawn by the junta. Still in politics, KIZZA BESIGYE begins hunger strike. Ugandan opposition leader KIZZA BESIGYE, now nearing 3 months in detention, has launched a hunger strike in protest for what his supporters call his wrongful imprisonment. BESIGYE, who faces charges of possessing firearms and attempting to buy weapons, denies all allegations. Despite delays in his trial and calls for his release, BESIGYE remains in military detention. BESIGYE's detention follows his dramatic abduction in Kenya and his return to Uganda, which sparked international condemnation. As his case continues to unfold, political tension in Uganda rises. Moving on in politics, Gabon's court shut down as magistrate protests for better pay and conditions. Gabon's court had been paralyzed for nearly a month as magistrates refused to work, demanding better pay and working conditions. The ongoing protests, which began on January 13th, have left hundreds of civilians without access to justice, with cases ranging from land and marriage disputes to criminal offenses and vital administrative documents like certificates of non-conviction. The National Trade Union of Magistrates is calling on the government to meet their demand for better financial and material support to ensure the independence of the judiciary. While the government acknowledges the issue, it cites financial difficulties in addressing the situation. Magistrates argue that the resources exist, especially considering recent increases in military salaries, and warn that the dysfunction in the court could disrupt the upcoming presidential elections. In economy, Ghana faces $156 million budget shortfall after USAID freeze. Countries worldwide are feeling the impact of the US administration's severe cuts to USAID, with Ghana hit particularly hard. The West African nation is facing a $156 million shortfall in its budget following the freeze on the American development aid. President John Mahama has directed Finance Minister to identify solutions to fill the funding gap. USAID has been vital for Ghana, especially in health and agriculture, supporting crucial programs like the National Surveillance System for HIV and initiative to boost agricultural competitiveness. You are watching the African News Update on Top Accolade News. Do stay with us. Still to come. Thanks for staying with us. In health, Uganda's Ebola cases rise to 9. Uganda's Ebola outbreak has now claimed 1 life, with 9 confirmed cases reported, including 8 patients in stable condition. 7 of the cases are being treated in Kampala, with 1 in Mbale, near the Kenyan border. Authorities have launched a trial vaccination program to fight the Sudan strain of Ebola, for which no approved vaccine currently exists. The World Health Organization hoped that this new vaccine could offer protection. However, the outbreak has sparked concern over communication issues and vaccine hesitancy, with businesses in Uganda's tourism sector already voicing frustration over the impact on the industry. Moving to conflicts. M23 rebels threaten to advance on BUKAVU. The M23 rebel group has threatened to advance on BUKAVU, the provincial capital of South Kivu, citing a dangerously deteriorating situation in the region. This follows recent territorial gains by the group, including the capture of Goma in January. While the ceasefire has temporarily paused their march, heavy shelling continues along the front lines. Congo's government, however, has refused direct talks with the rebels, insisting that any negotiations must involve a broader peace process under the East African Regional Bloc. With escalating violence, the situation risks spilling over into a broader regional conflict as Burundian and Rwandan troops remain stationed at the border. In entertainment, Article 1 defends Shatta WALE. Ghanaian musician Article 1 has come to the defense of fellow artist Shatta WALE, urging fans and critics to separate the musician's talent from his controversial personality. Article 1 emphasized that Shatta WALE's immense contribution to the Ghanaian music industry should not be overshadowed by his character. He stressed that it's essential to focus on an artist's craft and not judge their talent based on their personal conduct, stating that while an artist's character is part of the brand, it is important for the audience to distinguish between the two. Now in sport. Southern African nations set record with 7 teams in 2025 African Cup of Nations. The Southern African region football ambition are at the all-time high as the CAF African Cup of Nations prepare to take center stage in Morocco later this year. For the first time, a record 7 Southern African nations will compete at the prestigious tournament, including Angola, Botswana, Comoros, Mozambique, South Africa, Zambia, and Zimbabwe. The region is looking to make a significant impact, with both South Africa and Zambia previously lifting the trophy. The competition will be fierce, with Southern African teams facing tough opponents, including host Morocco and record holder Egypt. With the tournament set to run from 21st December 2025 to 18 January 2026, all eyes will be on these nations as they look to make their mark on the continent's biggest stage. That concludes our African News Update for today. Stay tuned for more African news and developments. Thanks for joining us. I am Ojorumi Okocha. Connect and engage with us on all our social media handles. Do have a wonderful day.